This is a presentation looking at the intersectionality of sex, gender, and sexual orientation. We must begin, at least from a Western perspective, understanding how society has gone from androsexism to heterosexism. Early society was very androsexist. That is, androsexism is the division based on a male non-male division. In those early times, it was homosexuality, that is same-sex relations, was still permissible. From the establishment of the Roman Empire to the outgrowth of Western society as we know it today, it became heterosexist. Heterosexism is based not only on a male-female division, but also on the need to be heterosexual. That is, not homosexual, not bisexual, etc. Also, within these Western ideals were centered on the reproductive basis, or basis of having reproduction as a category. It was not based on the reality of the diversity of sex characteristics. When sex and sex characteristics did reveal its true diversity beyond that of male and female binary, gender was established as an institution to continue that Western tradition. Though gender is a concept of use today, these points must be kept in mind. The creation of gender originally was to erase diversity, including intersex. Though it should not be based on sex determined at birth. Sex is a diversity biologically, socially, and culturally. Some people do not connect with their biology, but another gender. As such, they may or may not desire gender-conforming treatment. Though through gender, every person has a connection with sexual orientation in some way. Gender today must be understood and applied in an intersectional way with disability, class, race, ethnicity, and so on. A person's gender may be identified through as male, as female, or as non-binary. That is, some people do not fit into the categories of man, woman, male, or female. So non-binary is a gender that blends elements of being a man or a woman, or a gender that is different than either male or female, or even don't identify with any gender. Some people's gender changes over time. The most common description has been non-binary, but others include genderqueer, agender, bigender, and more, with none of these terms meaning the same. But all of these terms an experience of gender that is not simply male or female. Some intersex and transgender people identify as male, some as female, and others as non-binary. Non-binary does not equal intersex or transgender, or vice versa. Intersex. An intersex person is born with sex characteristics, including genitals, gonads, and chromosome patterns that do not typically fit the notions of male-female bodies. They are diverse, identifying as men, women, non-binary people who have varied understandings of and relationships to their sex and gender. Like everyone, they have a range of sexual orientations, including those who are heterosexual. They may or may not identify as part of the rainbow community. Transgender. For transgender people, there is an inconsistency between their sense of their own gender and the sex they were assigned at birth. Some transgender people seek surgery or take hormones to bring their body into alignment with their gender identity. Others do not. Sexual orientation. Sexual orientation refers to a person's physical, romantic, and/or emotional attraction towards other people. Everyone has a sexual orientation which is integral to a person's identity. So for a person's sex gender being, there are 4 elements that often come into play. The first being sex characteristics. So we have endosex, which are people whose sex characteristics match their identity, or there's intersex, whose sex characteristics do not fit the typical notions of male and female. There are also some people who modify or alter their characteristics, whether it be for health reasons, for gender conforming to their to conform to their gender identity, or for other reasons which could be varied. Then there is gender. A person may identify as male, as non-binary, or as female. Then there is sexual orientation. Some people are asexual, bisexual, heterosexual, or homosexual, and so on. And for some people, their spiritual or cultural recognition is also an important part of their sex gender being. Tipua, takatipui, whawhawhine, whakalete, and so on. So there is a uniqueness to each person and their traits. Their physiological, psychological, mental, social role, social expression, and sexual relations. This diagram identifies an illustrative list of some of these and shows that a person may not clearly be fully male or female and may have a mix of these different characteristics. In reality, it is hard to physically identify somebody as one or the other. That's why it is important to understand self-determination. So what comprises a person's sex gender identity? A sex gender identity is a becoming from birth throughout one's life. It is not determined at birth and includes the various elements, as illustrated to the right, that are interconnected with other parts of being and becoming. So one's self-perception includes cultural from the bottom, biology, sexual orientation, expression, spiritual connections, and social roles. All of these comprise together what makes up one's sex gender identity. Neither sex nor gender are the predominating identifier. Rather, it is determined by that of each individual as how they understand themselves. This is the current New Zealand law. I hope this makes it clear as to what comprises of sex, gender, and sexual orientation and how it comprises a person's identity.